Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get started, and anyone else who wants to join can join over time. But what we're going to do is we're going to start by introducing ourselves, and we'll just do it by alphabetical order. So we'll start with Joshua, and then we're going to talk about what does gamification mean to you, to our panelists. So Joshua, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, I'm Joshua Dern. I'm one of the co-founders of Pickaxe Foundry. Um, Gamification, you think of gamification, just anything that involves bringing game mechanics into user experiences as a way to, increase engagement, drive excitement, just improve your relationship overall with your fans or consumers or customers. So, to me, that's things like points or badges and leaderboards or, levels, all that kinds of things that kind of make it a little bit more fun.
Michelene?
Yeah, hi, Michelene Rabbitt. I am the sports and music principal for Snowflake. Prior to Snowflake was with Amazon, Bleacher Report, and Yahoo Sports. Gamification to me, of course, a very sports-focused answer. I think it's about kind of leading users or fans through any experience, really, in a way that feels like a game to encourage participation. So really similar to Josh's perspective, I think. So it could be anything from enticing a fan to consume a piece of content or to sign up for a loyalty program, but incorporating kind of game-like elements in order to just kind of incentivize the user to get through those steps.
Vishal?
Hey everyone, Vishal Parikh here, Chief Product Officer at LiveLike. I've been here for a little under 3 years now. Previously been at WeWork, Discovery, Lionsgate, mostly on the direct consumer side. Gamification to me and us at LiveLike, not to repeat too much of what Josh and Michelene mentioned, but always a challenge when you're going last. Yeah, I think it includes game mechanics and things that introduce interactivity, gamification elements, like Josh mentioned, things like leaderboards, achievements, challenges, badges, points, polls, quizzes, prediction questions, things that introduce that interactivity and gamification element to it. All things to, sort of increase the frequency of users using that experience or application, stay on for longer periods of time, and over time increase loyalty and brand affinity with that company. So sort of in a nutshell, that's what gamification means to me and us at LiveLike.
Great. Okay, so let's get into it. So how have you seen gamification evolve in recent years, and what are some of the most innovative strategies that are transforming fan engagement today? So Michelene, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So again, coming at things from a pretty sports-focused lens based on my role and experience, but yeah, I think the past few years have been incredibly exciting in terms of the evolution of gamification. My career, in sports started on the fantasy sports side of things, so I think that was kind of one of the original, I guess, kind of opportunities I saw to kind of really engage sports fans in a different way, in terms of kind of impacting fandom, so that you're no longer just following your favorite team or the players you're affiliated with. Now you've got your whole kind of fantasy squad week by week, or game by game that you're invested in. So pretty exciting, I think, things kind of that were uncovered there. And then of course with PAPSA getting revoked in 2018, with sports betting here in the US, at least, obviously sports betting has been prevalent in other areas of the world for quite a long time. But here in the US, seeing a lot more kind of comfort with and adoption of gamification behavior across fans. I think that's really had just kind of the growth of kind of sports betting as part of a sports fans experience has really impacted kind of openness to gamification. So some of the things I think that I've seen that are really interesting from Snowflake's customers in terms of how they've incorporated gamification elements into their fan experiences. So things like, a sports fan by definition is very passionate about competition, right? So if you're enabling things like polls or quizzes where they can really showcase their fandom and their expertise, letting them answer questions like, which pitcher do you think your favorite team is going to start at the first game of the upcoming playoff series, or how many 3-point shots do you think your favorite player is gonna nail in the next game? I think giving the opportunity for fans to engage in that way has really helped a lot of teams, for example, grow their loyalty programs. Of course, for those programs to work and for fans to continue to engage, you have to reward them for that gamification, right? So giving an opportunity to fans to earn points that they can redeem for merchandise or concessions or things like that always helps. But as long as that payoff is there, you can build this kind of great cycle of engaging them through gamification. Again, to do things like sign up for programs, sign up for ticket offers, things like that. And then one of the other things I'll say is I think another really interesting area for gamification is the in-arena experience. So we all saw the news recently with the new Intuit Dome out in LA that Steve Ballmer's launched. And so literally the fact that he's built a volume measurement into each seat within the arena so that fans can compete in terms of how loud they're cheering for a game and win prizes accordingly. I think that's like an example of all of the opportunity and all the exciting things in terms of where things can go.
Yeah, I would just add that I think personalization is probably one of the biggest changes in gamification over recent years. Obviously gamification goes back a long way. Your points on your credit card is a form of gamification. It's been around for a long time. But the difference is now, as the technology has evolved, for us to be able to get really personalized with what we know about the fan and what we can deliver to them. So instead of as Michelene mentioned, like a poll or fostering the tribalism that sports fans have, instead of just asking a generic poll, we might know what your preferences are. We might know who your favorite players are. We might know a lot more about you. If you're a fantasy participant, we might know who's on your team that's been drafted, and we can kind of craft and customize those experiences based upon the things that we know about you. And that obviously, will increase that engagement and get people more excited and foster more of the tribalism that drives so much of sports fandom. And also can help to drive that digital to real world experience transfer, because it's what we're seeing more and more of is not just, hey, we've got this set of kind of things that we do in venue and we've got a set of things that we do in digital. Let's bridge those together more and more so that we can actually move people back and forth between those experiences seamlessly.
The one point I'll add is more around that physical and digital connection, which Josh sort of ended with, which is what we're excited about in the gamification space is, not thinking about digital experiences and physical experiences as silos, but how we can help bring those experiences together. Going along with the personalization route, how can we offer rewards to users that we think is interesting to them rather than a generic set of rewards. For example, on American Express, they have a library of rewards, and for me as a customer of theirs, for me to go through irrelevant rewards, it's just a waste of time. And so what we're trying to do at LiveLike as we sort of evolve the gamification sort of area as it relates to rewards is to try to learn what preferences users have and try to lean in on that to recommend and sort of bubble up some of those rewards that might be more relevant for users to enhance the loyalty, enhance the gamification, tying back to incentivizing actions that this brand or company wants those users to make, all in an effort to have that pleasant sort of flywheel effect of, I'm going to do something, I'm going to earn rewards for it, and they're going to present me with rewards that are relevant for me. And that could be in-person actions or digital actions. And so sort of the trend in the gamification space is what we've been seeing and sort of riding on and what we see in 2025 and beyond.
Great. And I should also add, sorry, one piece of housekeeping I failed to mention at the start is if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll definitely get to them towards the end of the event. So moving on to our next question, can you share a specific case study where gamification significantly improved fan loyalty or engagement during a live event? What were the key lessons learned from that experience? So I'll hand that over to Vishal.
Yeah, I think one of the most recent customers that comes to mind is France TV. They covered the Olympics and the Paralympics recently, and they integrated some of our gamification features, including live chat and some of the interactive elements like polls and quizzes. And they saw a significant number of users, I'd say in the 7 figures, just register for an account just to be able to participate in live chat or some of the polls and quizzes. And I think that was a testament to you know, where normally they would have anonymous users just watch the broadcast, to be able to participate in some of these gamification elements. They were able to you know, get those number of registered users that wanted just to get access to those gamification features. And so I think, you know, what is amazing for that case study is just adding some easy to maintain and operate and integrate and launch features through our SDKs and APIs gives brands the opportunity to gain, you know, first party data and known users, convert anonymous to known users with just some of those simple features. And so that's a case study where, you know, again, where gamification improved the live experience, where normally they would have had hundreds of thousands or millions of users that are anonymous, and they know nothing about those users and can't create a relationship with them and further enhance you know, other ways to communicate and follow up with those users.
Absolutely. And I think the data behind all of this is something that we'll cover shortly, because I know that that's a very important factor. And according to the poll, that's one of our things that people are the most interested in. Joshua, Michelene, do you have anything else to add on the case study front?
Yeah, I could share just an example. This is actually kind of coming from the music side of the house. Unfortunately, I can't name which artist, but I did see a gamification kind of enabled experience around a concert, a tour, really, where fans who had purchased tickets to the event were encouraged to guess the set list in advance of the show. And if they were to do that and submit their responses, there was also some additional kind of data collected as part of that process. Then they got entitled to get early access to new tracks that the artist was releasing kind of as part of that tour. So I think it was only like a 24 or 48 hour window, if I remember, that they got that access in advance because they participated. But still, it resulted in a lot of engagement and got a lot of kind of positive feedback from fans too.
Yeah, I think it's an important point to note that we kind of didn't touch on yet, which is that the point of gamification is not just to engage the fans, but it's also to collect more meaningful data about your fans, to learn more about them. So it is kind of the best, sneakiest way to learn, you know, about what they're doing. But, you know, I use the word sneaky in a snarky way. Because if it's done in a way that's genuine and feels genuine, it works. And if it's done in a way that's not, it doesn't. But like Vishal's example, if you're a brand and you're trying to figure out how you can get people to sign up for something, and that's not always easy to do. You need a good value proposition to do that. But you want to learn more about who your audience is and what they're doing and what they're interested in. Making it fun is a good way to encourage them to do it. And I think we see that time and time again, that the more genuine the experience, the more it feels like it's part of that fandom and feels real, then the better the outcome is.
Yeah, I think to your points earlier, personalizing that engagement is also contributing to how authentic and genuine that interaction is, which certainly helps a lot.
Great. So moving on. So the bane of every sports fan's life is when their team is perhaps not performing in the way that you would want it to. So how do you keep a fan's attention if the team is underperforming or if the sport is off cycle? Because obviously that's something to factor in with sports as well. Is there a particular approach that you can take, or what do you focus on to help maintain that interest? So Vishal, that's one for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the topics and themes and features that we've been talking about helps overcome the challenge where your team might not be performing well, and you still want to increase or maintain the engagement in your digital ecosystem, or even keep users attending games. And I'd say for several of our clients that are teams, we've helped them get through that challenge. Everyone from Yes Network that covers the Yankees to Chelsea Football Club. If anyone is a Chelsea fan, a couple of years ago, I believe the 2022-23 season, they were not great in the Premier League, and a lot of their fans were really upset with the management and the team performance, and they've been using our gamification features for several years now. One of it, which is their feature called the Play Predictor, which is the set of predictions that you can make before a game. And they still saw over an 85% engagement / conversion rate for that feature, despite the team's performance that year. And it's only increased since, as they've been climbing up the standings. So I think, adding these kinds of features, it could be prediction games where users or fans still want to make predictions, having a loyalty and rewards program that incentivizes users to come back and do the actions that you want them to take. It could be watching video, referring a friend. Those are all tools and strategies that can help maintain and increase engagement despite team performance. And again, we've seen it with several of our clients, and we're happy to be able to help maintain that engagement that they eventually monetize, which makes us happy. So those sort of are sort of the things that come to mind.
I think what you're looking for ultimately are what's the lowest lift ways to kind of maintain excitement in the fandom off cycle, and that's kind of can be hard to do. But if you have ways that you can kind of create, tap into their already innate desire to talk, engage, debate, argue, like say what they think should happen, vote for who they want to see traded, or all of all of those things. If you can tap into those things in a way that you are able to control a little bit more, that obviously keeps them engaged more directly with you. Those things are happening elsewhere. They're happening on other fan sites, news sites. They're happening in fantasy sites. So, finding ways to bring that more into kind of your own experience, so it feels like, oh, I'm a part of the team. I get to do these things with other people who love the team and love the players, and just want to get more involved and engaged is going to be a good thing.
Snowflake has a lot of sports teams who use us on the performance side of the house, so I might just stay silent on that topic.
Great. So moving on, do you think that gamification can help address the challenge that fewer millennials and Gen Z are watching the whole game from start to finish? With the average baseball game lasting 3 hours, for example, do the sports themselves need to adapt, or are there just ways in which they're broadcast and gamified?
Well, I think for sure gamification can help. I think that the challenge is there's two challenges. One is, when you think about the experience when you're watching a game in person, there's a lot of effort being put into that being an experience, keeping it fun, especially certain sports, American sports in particular, a lot of downtime, a lot of, where plays have stopped. And so you get like the announcer doing this and the games that are happening in venue, and they try to create a very, very lively, fun atmosphere, which is not always easy to replicate for somebody who's sitting at home watching the game remotely. And obviously that's something that gamification can do to try to recreate some of those experiences and make it even more fun. I think the challenge is in part that the content is becoming more and more bite-sized. People are just the TikTokification, the Vinification of consumer content experiences, and sports has always been the one thing that can kind of stand outside of that. It can do well with ratings. It can engage people. It has to be live, like it's appointment viewing. It's not something people want to necessarily watch on their DVR. I'm aging myself by saying DVR days later. But that doesn't mean that it's not still, in some cases, too long and too boring. There's a lot of commercial breaks. There's a lot of downtime. And so finding ways to use those moments to create experiences that are, again, genuine, fun, feel connected to the fandom, are created by people who are also fans who love the experience, will certainly help to keep people more engaged. Not to say that there aren't cases where changes in the sport itself won't be necessary or helpful. I think those things may continue to happen. Obviously, the pitch clock is a good example, but at the end of the day, the sports aren't going to change that much, but the audience is changing. So how do we find ways to ensure that the next generation of audience will appreciate those sports? And some sports are going to find that easier than others, and then there's whole new categories of sports that are coming into play that are going to keep growing in popularity, and whether that's like really niche sports like slap or anything like that, or esports. I think that we're going to see how gamification can help to foster new fandoms for new evolving sports, but certainly for traditional powerhouse sports, it's really an important part of the kind of the overall experience you can create for your fans.
By the way, I think sorry, Josh, I think you aged yourself when you mentioned Vine instead of DVR. I think DVR is still a thing, but Vine isn't. I'll just quickly add to that and say that I think there's been a lot of use cases that we've been asked to support, and we see a lot of value with our tools being able to help with is increasing session lengths. You mentioned baseball, but even golf. Like I come from, when I was at Discovery, I was doing 3.5 years of golf digital platforms, and that sport is long. And to keep users on for 6+ hours for 4 days, it's tough. And you can only imagine what the average session length is, but imagine if you had gamification features where users could earn points for answering quiz questions correctly throughout the event, being able to fill in some of the ad breaks with gamification. You increase eyeballs while the advertising is going on. You increase session lengths for sponsors to be attracted to what those new average session lengths are. You can I would say, based on the data that we have and the customers that we work with, easily 1.5 to 2x the average session length just by adding some of the gamification feature that we're talking about. And what does that do for your KPIs? What does that do for revenue generation? So I think certainly with sports that have longer games, and with Twitter or X and WhatsApp groups and things like that, where users or fans are being pulled to or pulled away from watching the event to go chat with their friends, or what they might want to catch up on those conversations. Why not bring those experiences into your owned and operated platforms and keep the conversation going on your owned and operated platform? I think that's something that these sports will and leagues will have to adapt to, or else they're going to lose their traffic to other means of consuming content or getting that gamification element.
I would just add too, is I think there's always been this thing of like, is gamification a fad? Is it just like a thing that is going to kind of come and go? We've been talking about second screen for years. we've done many experiments with different kinds of second screen experiences, whether that's watch parties. I mean, we did a second screen for Game of Thrones because there were so many kind of intertwining characters and storylines that nobody can keep up with, that we actually created a second screen experience for this for HBO, where you could watch it and have like little hints and knows like, oh, this character belongs to this group and blah blah blah. They never really, they were all fads, but I think sports is different. I think this is a thing where, in like many other ways, sports is a place where people are hungry for information, where tribalism is powerful and real. And whether it's stats or the million different betting, like all the different ways that second screen and gamification experiences can enhance that. Sports really does stand out as a very different kind of beast when it comes to gamification. I mean, sports and retail are obviously two places where gamification is never going to go away.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I mean, I think we all know this is like a massive kind of challenge in the industry right now, right? So like we can't really, I don't think the way to look at it is there's only kind of one tool in the toolkit kind of to solve for getting younger fans to engage and watch kind of full length games. Fans, that generation, it's not just sports, right? They're grabbing a whole bunch of stuff from TikTok and Snap and elsewhere that previous generations would grab from kind of longer form content sources and information sources. So I think like in my view, kind of a way to think about that is gamification can be kind of one mechanism for kind of continuing that fan engagement kind of throughout the full game experience, but it needs to be complemented with other things. Like, for example, gamification with some sort of reward that maybe unlocks exclusive content, that's shoulder content that can be consumed after the game, or potentially even an alternate way to view the game in terms of like a layer of data-driven visualization or alternate camera angles or things like that. But I think the key with kind of encouraging kind of full-length live game viewership with gamification is to pair it accordingly. And of course, it's going to vary depending upon what the sport is. And as we all discussed, kind of on a personalized basis, kind of how each individual fan engages. But I think it's what we've kind of seen as a good way to think about it is thinking about it as a tool in the toolkit that can complement kind of a full strategy around kind of encouraging that behavior overall.
Well, I think that takes us nicely into the role of data in gamification and creating personalized fan experiences. How do organizations balance data collection with privacy concerns? Why is it important to collaborate with your ecosystem partners? This is a question for everyone because obviously it's a very important aspect of the gamification process. So Michelene, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. So yeah, I think we all know there is no personalization without data, right? That's kind of the way all of the magic happens. So of course, in terms of with privacy, kind of laws changing, especially kind of on a certain platform by platform basis these days. Consent is key, right? And so like, of course, you need to make sure that your fan is completely aware and has explicitly, kind of authorized you to collect that data from them. But I think I think fans are getting a lot more comfortable with that as you continue to reward them through that, right? And I know I've talked a lot about rewards in terms of like things like perks and merch offers and things like that, but also just the reward of like recognizing, knowing who they are as a fan, right? Like every fan would prefer to be addressed based on knowing kind of which teams they support, which players they support, et cetera. So I think that can be kind of considered a reward too. But again, on that basis, I think fans are becoming more and more open to sharing that type of data when they're rewarded through personalization, et cetera. And then when it comes to just kind of sports fandom, we all know that a sports fan's journey is incredibly fragmented. So they go to a certain platform to watch a full-length game. They go to a different platform to get their highlights, a different platform to place their bet. So there is no single entity in the sports ecosystem that knows everything about the fan. So if you're not collaborating with your ecosystem partners, it's just such a missed opportunity in terms of being able to kind of understand kind of all aspects of who each fan is and how they engage. Honestly, that was, that in itself was literally kind of the core of why I decided to join Snowflake, is because of how easy we make it for ecosystem partners to engage, regardless of data type or source, et cetera. So in my view, without that type of ecosystem collaboration, true personalization for the fan is just not really possible, because again, until there's one place to kind of do all the things and engage in all the ways a sports fan craves, that kind of ecosystem collaboration is just a crucial piece of the puzzle.
Great. I'll hand that question over to Joshua now.
I'm not sure there's a lot to add. I think Michelene said it really well. I mean, you have to, obviously all of this is about data at the end of the day, right? One of the things that we will always say is that every company is a data company, whether they realize it or not, or think about themselves that way or not. That is what you are today. And understanding how you are collecting data, how you're using data, what the point of the data is really, really, really important. But especially when it comes to, PII, like data about your fans, and doing it in a way that is useful and meaningful. I mean, I think today's day and age, the problem is not usually that you're not sure how to get data. Often the problem is you have too much data and you're not sure what to do with it. And that's kind of it's a nice problem to have. It's a different problem than, let's say, 10 years ago, but it is a problem nevertheless. But the marketplace is evolving, and you have to be smart about this in terms of new legislation and how that impacts the things that are happening, and new laws. Obviously, lots of states are implementing laws similar to CCPA in California. These are going to impact the way you do data collection practices. So there's a lot to do and consider that are beyond kind of the surface. It's easy on the surface to think we're going to do a thing and we're going to collect some data. But there is a little bit more underneath that you have to make sure you're thinking about in terms of data governance and who should access it and how it should be accessed and what data is collected and where it's stored. But that's where it's important to have a good sense of the business being connected to strategies around the why of what this data is going to be useful.
Great. And Vishal, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, from LiveLike's perspective, it's easy one because we don't collect PII. And so we are GDPR, CCPA compliant out of the box. But we do allow you to collect zero-party data, I guess is the term, where you can let users, through gamification, through polls, quizzes, you can capture what the user prefers or who they're rooting for, or what, if they're getting quiz questions correct or incorrect. You can start to infer if they're an expert or not for that team or player or what have you. And you can capture all that data and use it for personalization strategies. And so it's a way to I think we mentioned this before, like capture that user data without making it feel like a survey, or as part of like a sign up registration flow. Like when you go through a registration flow in a sports app, you'll be asked like, what's your favorite team? Instead of that being part of a registration flow, you can prompt it during the experience while watching an event, or ad hoc, even embedding it in an article, for example, make it feel a little bit more organic, a little bit more natural, instead of something where the user feels like you're just pulling data from me. And so for us, again, we associate it to an anonymized user ID, and then you just map that back to your database and your user records, and start to personalize the experience that way. So yeah, it's a pretty simple one for us.
Great. Well, I'm also just going to flag, Johnny, we've seen your question. I will make sure that we answer it at the end. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll get to them at the end of the session. So our next question is aimed at Vishal. What opportunities for upselling and revenue generation can gamification bring? Because I know this is something that you guys see a lot with your customer.
Absolutely. And I kind of touched on this before, but these features really drive some of these brands' major KPIs around session length or return of use, daily active users, things like that, right? And those are some of the most important KPIs or metrics for brands that have advertisers or sponsors. And so right off the bat, you add these features and you're seeing engagement rates of over 80%. And based on the frequency, and that sort of ties to Johnny's question, you can really start to pull in advertiser sponsors for, for putting their logo on something that you didn't have the inventory for before. And so we've seen for a variety of different clients, again, Yes Network comes to mind, Canal Plus, which is a broadcaster in France, Golden State Warriors, they partner with Chase, or they were, and a lot of these brands, it is a pleasant surprise for them where they can attract advertisers with more inventory that they didn't even think about before, or enhance the value that they're bringing these sponsors or advertisers with increased session lengths. Other revenue generating opportunities, with the New York Mets, we helped them launch their Mets Connect, which is their loyalty program this season, and they saw an increase, and we're helping them reward their users for behavior that they're already doing, purchasing food and beverage. I think Michelene mentioned this, purchasing food and beverage or merch, tickets. And so they saw an increase, based on the attention that the loyalty program gave, they saw an increase in sales, just based on that. And so I think gamifying the experience definitely leads towards, additional revenue generating opportunities, and the ROI is clear, at least in our eyes. It's just a matter of how you deploy it, what tools you use, how you use them. Frequency matters. Users don't want to be bombarded with it or be too overwhelmed with some of these mechanics. But and we've helped brands think through the crawl, walk, run approach, and they've seen a lot of success and conversion into turning this into a revenue generating ecosystem.
Yeah, I think other than, there's the obvious halo effect, right? You're doing gamification to just increase engagement overall. The thing itself is something that is potentially sponsorable. So you can you're going to create a new feature, you're going to bring in a specific sponsor for it, so you can get direct revenue from that. But the other side of the coin is you're collecting interesting data that can also then be used to drive other increased revenue and in every one of your revenue streams. So whether that's looking for churn propensity for subscribers or even season ticket holders, whether that's offers of occasional ticket purchasers who you're trying to get to come back and purchase more tickets and come back to games more frequently, whether it's merch that you're selling through your stores, the more you're able to understand about your audience, the better. I think that the challenge that everybody has when you do a clustering analysis on all of this data, what you'll find is the correlation you'd expect is that the most engaged, like if you're looking at viewership of on streaming sports networks, the most engaged viewers are the ones that are also most likely to participate with the gamification elements, which is great because you want to continue fostering those users. And the ultimate challenge you have is the casual fans. Like, what do you do for them? How do you make sure that the casual fans that may be 50% of your audience, how do you get them to also be engaged? And so there may be a different set of gamification features that work better for that group than for your already super engaged group at the top. But across the board, the benefit is there, and you have revenue opportunities for all of them.
The one part I actually, Josh, you reminded me, I forgot to mention, again, doing 3.5 years of golf at Discovery made me think about the opportunity there, at least now that I'm at LiveLike, and what we could offer. And we're we're working with a couple of golf leagues, but one of the concepts or revenue generating opportunities that we mentioned was, imagine having a poll that partners with a Titleist, for example, and as you're watching a broadcast and it's a specific hole on a golf course, and the poll comes up and it's like, which Titleist driver would you use on this and you're not only helping Titleist bring awareness to the drivers that they have, but you're also capturing that data from users that participate in that poll of which driver they would prefer. And then you can package that data and sell it back to Titleist, or you can offer Titleist ways to target users for personalized, e-commerce purchase flow. For, hey, you mentioned that you would use this specific Titleist driver. Here's a link to purchase it with a 20% off discount. I think there's revenue generating opportunities throughout, and I think capturing that data and partnering up with brands that you might already have in your bag or your arsenal is a great way to enhance those relationships and revenue.
Great. So moving on, as fan expectations continue to evolve, how do you ensure that your gamification and engagement strategies remain relevant and future-proof? What technologies or partnerships do you foresee playing a key role in this going forward?
Yeah, I think all this talk about gamification is great, and it's all stuff that everybody wants to do, but the challenge is actually in the doing part. And the most important thing is actually making sure that your tech and data stacks are flexible enough to be able to essentially manage all of these data requirements if you really want to make gamification effective. Because it's not just about like, oh, I'm going to implement a point system and hope that people are going to be more engaged. I mean, that is really what has been the history of gamification over kind of the early, the early kind of digital gamification boom. But the real trick is actually to holistically integrate it into everything else that you are doing. And this really means having a system design that's easy to plug things in and out of, easy to get data moving downstream and possibly back upstream again. And with the key part of like being able to turn this data into something that's actionable, right? And whether that's actionable insights, things that you're learning about your fandom, things that you're learning about your viewers and all that stuff, or actionable in terms of like driving direct business benefit, whether that's increased viewer time or other kinds of increased engagements, as hinted in the questions, like all the KPIs that you would actually care about in terms of running the business. So I think it's really essential that you ultimately think about it in terms of like your holistic data stack and the way that gamification is not just going to fit as a feature that you're offering to fans, but as a technology that has to kind of fit in the core of what you're doing in a stack that makes it easy to do that. And that's where partners like Snowflake, like LiveLike, you might have a data warehouse, you might have these things, but that doesn't mean they're natively going to easily talk to each other without there being a sense of like, how do we get this to work? How have we architected it in a way that makes sense? Do we understand how to make the data move and connect? As Vishal mentions, they're not collecting PII, right? How do you connect those events back to the user that's doing those actions? So connecting it into your CDP in a way that makes sense, having the right data schema, having the right data architecture. It's important that you do it in a way that's also not brittle, because what you want is to be able to stay ahead of trends and continuously evolve as the marketplace is evolving and adapting to new fan behaviors and integrating new emerging technologies. And whether that's here in the United States, betting is something that is new in terms of it being allowed in certain instances. It's been allowed for a long time in other countries, like in the UK, but it's new here. And these are new technologies that have to get implemented and thought of. There are also new revenue opportunities, microtransactions. There's all these different ways that that you can leverage gamification. But the trickiest part tends to be the actual doing part of getting the bits and pieces to work in order to make sure that whether you're using third-party partners like a LiveLike, that they have the data they need. Like LiveLike is amazing, but we've got to send them data. We've got to make sure that they know, like if we're going to do a tuning campaign, that they have a way to measure that somebody actually viewed the video. So that video events have to be properly structured and sent to LiveLike, so that LiveLike can then take action off of those events. So at the end of the day, especially as you want to get more personalized, and especially as you want to get more benefit from this, because all of this data should then be able to become points that we're using, whether that's for, again, churn propensity analysis, conversion analysis, any kinds of ML or AI models that we want to create to then better understand or offer or personalize the experience for our fans and consumers. And I think really the key thing at the end of the day is always trying to stay personalized, make it meaningful, connected to their individual preferences, feeling genuine, feeling like it's from somebody who also is a fan.
Yeah, I think that was really well said. I guess just the one area I would maybe like kind of highlight that I think you did mention is just how important it is to be constantly measuring performance and constantly be measuring performance on a very granular and personalized level, because I think in the past sometimes we've seen, kind of maybe where the overall metrics of a given gamified program were not as encouraging, maybe for a certain demographic, or maybe for a certain kind of subset of fans, the project was really impactful. So maybe it makes sense to continue onward with that fan group and then pivot, for other fans accordingly. And to your point, a key to that is making sure that the performance of those campaigns is fed back into that fan profile. So now this is just another metric in terms of knowing who that fan is, knowing which channels they engagement, knowing kind of what opportunities they respond to. And as long as you're kind of constantly evolving and learning, and coming from Amazon, fail quickly and move on was a very kind of daily kind of theme. But realizing kind of, making sure that you have enough data to know where you're failing and where you're not, and so that you can kind of continue onwards with certain fans the way that they want to be engaged with, and potentially again think about new approaches for other fans. Again, personalization is only going to become more and more crucial, I think, to every way that we engage with fans.
So I think you guys covered the data ecosystem part, and the constantly check performance. What I'll add from the LiveLike perspective is always staying ahead with the latest technologies, or AI comes to mind. And so we've been as we grow our feature set and the tool set that we have, we love to understand what our customers' pain points are, and a lot of it related to gamification. If you think about live chat, a lot of the pain points have been around moderation, right? And I'll touch on that in a minute, but around like creating polls or quiz questions and how easy or difficult it is. And so we've launched Gen AI capabilities where you can just prompt in our dashboard a topic or a team or a player or theme, and we'll pump out 15 to 20 quiz questions, polls that you can easily just publish, right? So that lowers the barrier to have to staff someone that has the knowledge and the context to be able to come up with questions on the fly as the game is going on, for example, right? So lowering that friction, that barrier, that overhead is how we help our brands continue to use these gamification features with less of a dependency on some areas. And then on the moderation side, we're doing things like sentiment analysis to help moderate auto flag, to increase brand trust and sort of safety and sort of these community experiences, and where traditionally it's been somewhat of a fear for the brand, where you're offering this live chat environment where users or fans can start to trash talk the ownership group or the managers or things like that. And so having to staff people to actively moderate the chat is a big ask. And so the ways that we stay ahead to continue to evolve as our customers' needs continue to change, the realities, the budgets, the team sizes, as well as the fan behavior, these are the ways that we, a couple of examples of how we offer our technology and capabilities to circumvent and help overcome those hurdles.
Great. Well, that's the end of our questions. So I will turn it over to our Q&A section where we have a question that I think we've kind of addressed, but we'll go a little bit more in depth. And sorry, I should say this will definitely be available as a recording to share with others. We'll make sure that it's sent around to all the attendees afterwards. So Johnny asks, how do you measure the success of a gamification strategy in terms of its impacts on fan engagement and loyalty? What metrics or KPIs are most important to track?
I think it's a great question. I would almost invert the question, though. I would say you shouldn't really do a gamification strategy without actually having understood like what KPIs you're trying to impact with the gamification strategy. So I would say I would slightly invert the question always, just to make sure you have a KPI first to do it. But the KPIs that gamification are geared towards impacting generally and naturally are the obvious ones, right? So whether that's time spent, it's like engagement metrics across the board, like return frequency, time spent, session length, all the things that are kind of these core engagement metrics are, one of the most top of mind things that you're going to impact with gamification. But there's a lot of other very specific KPIs that you could leverage gamification strategies for. Transactions, name any one of your kind of top line KPIs. There might be a specific gamification strategy that is geared towards that. Reducing churn would be another KPI you might use gamification for. So, it is one of those things where it's easy to make gamification something that can do anything and everything. But when you try to make it do anything and everything, you don't necessarily do it well. So you always want to try to make sure you're thinking about like, what are the things that are really, really most important to us, and how do we employ a strategy that will be catered towards those things that are critical to us in a way that, again, just to beat the dead horse on this, is genuine and feels real and feels like it's from a community that loves it. But certainly at a base minimum, engagement metrics are always going to be a kind of key thing you're going to look at when it comes to gamification strategies.
I'll add ARPU and LTV to those acronyms that you throw out before, Josh. But also, yeah, like completion rates. One that I like to use internally at LiveLike is time to first reward. If you think about the video streaming world, you're always focused on time to first bite. But for us on the loyalty side of things, time to first reward, you don't want it to be too easy or too difficult for users to get to their first reward. And so gauging that metric, I think, is actually pretty interesting if you actually start to, as we work with our clients, we help them figure out what that sweet spot is for them. But yeah, I agree with Josh. I think with the product hat on, always start with the problem first that you're trying to solve for, and then figure out which tools or strategies to deploy. Yeah.
Yeah, don't have too much to add there. I would echo all the points. I think all of us are participating or watching this webinar because we just have passion for kind of engaging fans and getting them more excited about sports. So that's always going to be part of it and part of the reason, but it's always got to be KPIs backwards. Like, so for example, when I worked for Amazon's music streaming service, we knew that the number of devices through which a fan engaged with the service, the longer they were likely to stay as a customer, which of course impacted that retention, impacted LTV. So it's all got to be, you have your own kind of KPIs that are specific to your business goals, and you have to work backwards from there.
Yeah, the interesting on that is that, when you run various analyses on these data, like when you look at like media streaming as an example, there's a common set of features that are just commonly true, like that multiple devices thing. That's a great example of a feature that's a churn indicator. How much time people watch sometimes is, but in and of itself may not be, because you might just be a casual fan, you might be a background fan. It's device dependent too, but it does, like if you watch on 3 devices versus 1 device, these things all matter. So the way that you can employ your gamification strategies to connect to what you understand about your audience already. You know, if you already know that there are key indicators that will drive certain behaviors, then the question is, how do you use gamification almost as a behavioral modification strategy to try to encourage people into those categories? So, you know, the example I used earlier is you might have 50% of your audience as very casual fans. And how do you employ a gamification strategy that helps convert them into a more deeply engaged fan? Instead of just a gamification strategy that caters towards the people that are already engaged fans, and they may not be the same strategy. So really thinking things through in a deeper way, and pairing your gamification strategies with things like data analysis and other tools to be a little bit more thoughtful about your approach. So it's not like a spray and pray, but it's really personalized and individualized.
Great. Well, hopefully that answers Johnny's questions. And I think that's everything in our Q&A section, unless anyone wants to drop something in quickly, but we are almost at time anyway. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I think we're going to pop a slide up here, which has some contact info. It's got the Pickaxe info on there, but if you get in touch with us, we'll point you in the right direction of